Hi everyone, this is 2025 FOREX Trading Empire Mentorship Program Lecture 32. The topic for this lecture is weekly preview. In this weekly preview, I'll be discussing on how I determine my weekly bias for the week. I'll be going through three currency, which is going to be the Euro USD, GBP USD, and USD JPY. I'll be using the weekly time frame to determine if next week is going to be an up close candle or a down close candle, or I'm not going to be looking for any setup throughout the week. I'll be explaining on how I decide my narrative and how I'm going to be planning up the week going into next week. On the weekly time frame of Euro USD. Last week, weekly review, I talked about price that I'm anticipating an up close candle on the weekly time frame. Try to see if price will go for the buy side liquidity. You can clearly see that price failed to go for the buy side liquidity throughout last week. Price was completely on the downtrend. It was on Thursday that price did a retracement back to the candle range. But my bias last week was to see price go for the buy side liquidity. Now going into this week, which you can completely see the price trade against my bias. Going into next week, seeing the price took out the swing low, and price traded back to the range. I'm I clearly don't have a clear bias on where I'm anticipating price to go on the weekly time frame. Although I can still use the daily time frame for bias where I'm trying to look at the intraday setup within a daily range to determine my bias if I were to sell from current price direction where price is close to the weekly fair value gap and is going into this daily fair value gap. So I can still determine daily bias from this current price data. But on a weekly bias, I clearly don't have a clear narrative to where price is going because price might retrace back to this high. We're expecting this other block. We're expecting this consistence of down close candle. Price might respect it and trade higher. But I'm paying attention to this other block, which price already traded below the other block. So I currently don't have any bias of anticipating higher prices or any bias of anticipating lower prices from the weekly time frame, which I can use the daily once we're into the week. But on a weekly perspective, I don't have a clear weekly bias when it comes to Euro USD. Why? Because the fair value gap failed to create higher prices for price to run on the buy side liquidity. Traded lower, took out the swing low, and went for the swing low. So going into next week, I clearly don't have a bias. I'll be waiting on to see what price will present itself. And if there's any daily perspective, I'll be doing a daily review on that trade. Now moving to British USD, which is the GBP USD. GBP USD price took at this high. Since price took at this high, price did an internal weekly shift in structure, which you can clearly see the shift in structure where price did a shift in structure, went back to this weekly fair value gap. We expected the weekly fair value gap. And last week I told you guys that I'm anticipating the down close candle, anticipating price to run at the swing low. Although price came close to the swing low, formed an equal low. Going into next week, I'm still anticipating price, trying to see if I can see more lower prices to run out this sell side liquidity, which is currently like an equal low now. So previous week low will be my target, anticipating price to run out previous week low, which I'm currently anticipating a down close candle because the narrative is that price took out the buy side liquidity, a weekly internal shift in structure, and I'm anticipating lower prices because last week engulfed the previous candle. There's a chance of price trading lower from this weekly fair value gap, going for this sell side liquidity. Moving to USB JPY. USD JPY traded higher, took out these highs, reject back to the range. I'm currently still looking at price from this price range from this swing low to a swing high. Price already took out the high. There's a chance of price going for the buy side liquidity at this high. Knowing that there's a chance for price to move to that high, I'll be looking for a short term counter trend for the buyers because last week price took out this high, retraced back to the range. Now there's a chances of price going back to this weekly fair value gap, going back to the weekly fair value gap and running down to previous week low to run out previous week low. So there's the chances of price going for that low. So I'm going for a counter trend because this might be a short-term reversal back to the weekly fair value gap to run out previous week low. So my bias going into next week is to anticipate down close candle. I'll be seeing if price will be trading lower, and my target is to see price go for the weekly low. If price takes out the weekly low, then I might look for a retracement. That is, if I can't find a trade before running out the low, then I will look for a retracement going higher. But my overall bias is to see price go for the buy side liquidity. I'm only taking this trade because it's a counter trade, which is going to be a low probability setup. So we have covered up the major time frame. Going back to Euro USD, looking at the daily charts from what price did last week, you can see last week price open traded lower throughout the week from Monday to Thursday. It was on Friday as they announced the NFP news that price did this push in price trading back to the weekly range. So make sure you do your own personal review, do your own personal study on what price did last week. There's a whole lot of areas to look at the daily chart to anticipate down close candle throughout the week because price took out this low on Monday and on Tuesday. So which on Wednesday you'll be anticipating price to go for a swing low. So study what price did on Wednesday, study what price did on Tuesday, because that will help you to understand price more better and learn how to align the daily and the weekly time frame. So that is all for this lecture. See you guys in the next lecture.